They're conservatives. Either they can't do it, they don't have the art to do it, they're too embarrassed to do it, but as a result, people think that they're squares. They can be wonderful people. And I'm trying to say to you that only by maligning the enemy and the opposite of what I'm saying, or to complete what I'm saying on the other side of the moon, maligning the enemy will defeat the enemy. So in this case, I'm maligning Hillary Clinton for being a phony. But she's not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is ISIS. And I'm going back to World War II, when a powerful propaganda machine helped the United States win the war in the Pacific. Frank Capra, great film director. He had Mr. Smith Goes to Washington in 1939. And what did he do just weeks after Pearl Harbor? Frank Capra, the famous director, quit Hollywood and volunteered for service in the United States Army. With his nation at war, he was willing to do his bit in taking the fight to the Axis powers. Where's Harvey Weinstein when we need him? He's a Jew, after all. I know you just winced and sucked air into your filling. Harvey Weinstein's Jewish. ISIS would like to cut Harvey Weinstein's head off and throw him down a well. Katzenberg is Jewish. Geffen is Jewish. They are the Caesars of Hollywood. And the best protection I have against those who will accuse me of anti-Semitism is the fact that it's true what I just said. They own Hollywood. They run Hollywood. And yet none of them, as I can tell, has ever produced a movie which shows us the danger we are in from the Arabs in ISIS, who hate Jews in particular, and Christians in general, and Muslims who don't conform to their 9th century view of the world. Where is the Frank Capra of our time? So Frank Capra leaves the military, volunteers for service in the U.S. Army. He didn't go to the front lines to throw grenades at Nazis or stick bayonets into the guts of Japanese soldiers. He spent the entire war shooting his target with film, and he fashioned moving images into very powerful messages. And what his weapon was not a Thompson submachine gun, but a bulky movie camera. And over the war years, Frank Capra and his team produced 7 documentary-style movies, the very famous Why We Fight series, to explain why the U.S. found itself involved in the greatest war of all time. We are involved in the second greatest war of our time, and we are neutralized. We are neutered. We have been defeated by the lesbians. I'll say it like it is. It's like I don't care anymore. It's like I've come out of an illness. All gloves are off. I can't even mask what I'm saying. The radical lesbians destroyed America. They neutralized the Christian male. They made him ashamed of his own heritage and his own race. They have made us incapable of defending ourselves, let alone defeating the enemy. That's a full sentence. It started with the vile mouth of Bella Abzug. And here we are today where people are afraid to say the truth about ISIS, who both enslave young girls, rape young girls, kidnap women, turn them into slaves. Everybody knows this. When have you last seen a movie showing the enemy for what they are? When have you seen a Harvey Weinstein flick starring, let us say, Sean Penn as a valiant officer who goes to the Middle East and sees the rapes, the murders, and the kidnapping? Never. And you'll never see it, because we don't have a Frank Capra. We have the opposite right now. We have propagandists in Hollywood who, instead of using their genius, and never underestimate their genius, instead of using their genius to help us form a war against the enemy, shape the minds of our young and our soldiers to get ready for the fight that we're fighting right now, instead of doing this, the Weinsteins and the Geffens and the Katzenbergs and the Spielbergs of our time use all their efforts to debase the white Christian heterosexual male in subtle ways, of course. They don't do it as overtly as they did 5 or 6 years ago, but it's there in my estimation. I can show you 5 different movies where the enemy is the white heterosexual Christian male. And by the way, in that legion of Hollywood titans I mentioned, I would say the least offensive is Spielberg. At least he has to his credit the great movie Saving Private Ryan, which was ultimately an anti-war movie, by the way. Make no mistake about it. It wasn't the Why We Fight movie. Brilliant, wonderful, excellent. But it wasn't Why We Fight. It was more like Why Should We Fight? If you actually studied it, as I have. That's my job, is to look beyond the beyond. And so, as again, I want to say, maligning the enemy is something we don't do. We've been neutralized by very, very powerful forces in this country. And so you never see a movie showing an Arab as the enemy. Never. That's even though Jordan tells their own people how dangerous ISIS is, and they're a Muslim country. We are so, I don't know what word to use. I know what word to use. I can't. It's a family show. We've been so deballed that the people in this country don't even know what's going on over there. Then there were artists and writers who took it upon themselves to poke, provoke, prod, and otherwise persuade the average civilian at home how evil the Germans and Japanese were in World War II. And these propagandists produce messages in newsreels, billboards, print ads, on the radio. Everywhere you turned, imaginable and otherwise, there was a propaganda film or a propaganda poster during the years of World War II. Where is the propaganda against the worst scourge the planet has faced since old Adolf and his minions marched to the Horse Vessel song? The conservative intellectuals, where are they? There are almost none. The sad truth is that some of the most brilliant minds of our time are falsely political progressives. Don't confuse yourself and assume that they're progressives because they're stupid, or that with the glib tongue they're all low information voters. Many of these people would rather be nice and kind than right. They may even know that their politics are wrong, but they'd rather err on the side of kindness, which leads me to the next point. Hatred is not a philosophy. And I'm asking you again, who are the conservative creators, the conservative intellectuals other than me? Yes, I'll put myself in the top echelon. I am so sick and tired of pretending that we're all the same. We're not all the same. It takes more than hatred to make a movement. It takes more than everyday false righteous indignation to make a point. Give me a break from all these multi-millionaire talk show hosts who don't give 10 cents to charity, screaming about the little guy who's hurting, or falsely complaining about the economy that's dying as they build beachfront mansions built on the swamp of hate and deceit. And I'll reiterate that I've given money away for years to deserving Marines who were facing court-martials they didn't deserve. I donated this year $20,000 for a van to Brent Gromit and Matt so they'd have a car to drive. And I'm about to donate $100,000 in scholarships to deserving college students, 5 $20,000 scholarships. We've been working on that for 4 months now. And so we need propaganda. We don't need aggregators. Don't confuse aggregators of news stories with conservative creators. Don't confuse aggregators of news stories with talkers who have an intellect. Please don't make the confusion. There are some good nonfiction books out there that are on the conservative side. I've written many of them. Well, they're okay. How many conservatives have written fiction, such as I have just done with the masterpiece Countdown to Mecca, in order to broaden the appeal of my viewpoint? Can you name one conservative filmmaker? Can you name one conservative poet? Can you name one conservative musician? Can you name one conservative painter? Who? It takes more than hatred to make a movement. It takes more than screaming every day about how bad everything is in order to make a movement, which is why so many people and some of the most brilliant minds of our time are falsely political progressives. They'd rather be nice than right. Talk about maligning the enemy and how we must use the power of propaganda to build a prejudice against the Islamo-fascists in order to beat them at their own game. Propaganda was used in World War II to smear the Japanese and to smear the Germans. It invigorated our troops. Was it pretty? No, it was pretty ugly. Was it stereotypical? Yes, it was. Did it help the troops feel that they can defeat the enemy? Yes, it did. But right now, our troops have nothing to go on other than a hatred for themselves. If they're white, they're being indoctrinated by goons in the military who tell them they have white privilege. If they're straight and Christian, they're being indoctrinated by vermin in the military who are telling them that straight and Christian is evil. So everything is upside down. The left is everywhere with their propaganda, and we on the conservative side are nowhere with effective propaganda. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I, Michael Savage, trust to buy my gold and silver from. SwissAmerica.com.
British professor Hubert Lamb says that a new ice age is creeping over the northern hemisphere. Even then, it won't be as bad as the last ice age 60,000 years ago. Then New York, Cincinnati, St. Louis were under 5,000 feet of ice. Presumably, no traffic moved and school was let out for the day. And that's the way it is. Monday, September 11th, 1972.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation. I'm talking about propaganda today, and back in the 70s, the propaganda was the coming ice age. The propaganda now is the coming hot age. Both are lies. Both are frauds. Both were built on houses of fraudulent science. In the world of politics, the world is not much different. Both sides use lies. However, the progressives are winning because they use lies more effectively. They're better artists, better writers, better creators, and, frankly, they own the studios. Katzenberg, Geffen, how many of them are actively involved in making movies anymore? They're too big to make movies, but they run the show. Nothing happens, in my estimation, unless the Caesars of Hollywood give a thumbs up. It's a thumbs-up operation all the way down the line. And so you never see a movie where an Arab is a villain. You never see a movie where you see what ISIS is doing to Christians burning churches. When have you last seen a movie showing a church burning, produced by Harvey Weinstein? Never. I haven't seen Weinstein produce a movie showing a church on fire with Christians being killed. When have you last seen a Katzenberg production, if he's still producing movies, where you see young Yazidi girls raped 8 years of age, raped by Muslims? You haven't seen such a movie. Why not? I don't know why not. These are brilliant men. They're geniuses. Don't they run the world? Aren't they invited into the White House on a regular basis? Don't they rub shoulders with such esteemed American citizens, such as Al Sharpton? And so we're talking today about propaganda, and why we need propaganda to win not only against our socialist enemy, but against the ISIS enemy, which is our collective enemy. And I am clear in saying that we have no real group of conservative intellectuals that I know of, and that some of the most brilliant minds of our time are falsely political progressives. Some of them know exactly what they're doing, and they know that they're living a lie, but they don't care. They don't care because they won't work in Hollywood unless they work the party line. They don't care in some cases because they'd rather be invited out to social gatherings than live alone and be in isolation. And then some of them would rather be nice than right. So where are the conservative intellectuals? I don't mean aggregators of news stories. I don't mean people who put together nonfiction books. I've done that. Nothing wrong with it. It's a very hard job to do it right and make people have something they can really read. How many conservatives have written a novel, as I have, in Countdown to Mecca, the third in the trilogy? You can count them on one hand, if that many. How many films have been made which have a conservative orientation? Where is there a conservative poet who has been invited to a university to read her poetry? Nowhere. Where is there a musician playing a patriotic theme? Nowhere. Where is there an artist painting patriotic paintings? Nowhere. You see, it takes more than hatred to make a movement. It takes more than false righteous indignation to have an audience that follows you devoutly. The fact of the matter is we can't build a movement on the swamp of hatred and deceit. And so I come before you today in the show to talk about the fact that we have to malign the enemy to defeat the enemy. Just as was done by this nation in World War II. They were maligning the enemy on a daily basis. They maligned the Japanese. They maligned the Germans. They used naked propaganda. They made them into villains. Now every German couldn't have been a villain. Every Japanese soldier couldn't have been a villain. Many of them were, by the way. If you looked at the behavior of the Japanese soldier, many of them were villains. And if you don't believe me, then research the rape of Nanking and you'll see what the average soldier in Japan was capable of. before we get off on the high horse of we interned them here in America. That's all I got to hear about. I'm sorry about the internment. I didn't do it. FDR did it.